My name is Dale, and I am the librarian for many of the social sciences, including criminology. I'm tripping over myself. Excuse me. What we were looking at, and I've de identified all of this, so since this is a public video, I won't be naming names or anything like that. But we're looking at bail industry system disproportionate effect on minorities. So what I'm going to do is walk you through a couple of steps that I would try, and then you and I can talk over email and sort out whether this is in the direction you were looking for, or whether you were looking something else. So I know you were looking for policy recommendations. I think what you may have to do, depending on how much research has been done on this, is you may have to look at what works and what doesn't work, because a lot of the cases are going to be, well, we tried this, and here's the evidence, but they might not be saying we recommend this or we don't recommend this. They might give you like little nuggets of information, like we found that this affected minorities more than other populations, or we found that this was disadvantageous for a specific group, or we found that this was inequity. So you might have to build your case, and there might not be a scholarly article that says this is it, this is the best way to go. So be that as it may, let's dig in. So when I was looking, so here's my first strategy, is bail reform. I know that's been used. So, but if we just go to the library catalog, go to the library catalog, if we just type in bail reform, there might be some very specific things on it. So the library catalog is kind of a smart search. So if you just type in keywords, it might work like Google and give you what it thinks are the most relevant. But here you can see there's 106 books. When something reaches the books level, you can think of it as kind of established canon for this is how it works up to this point. And this is repeatable evidence. So it's kind of like a major stepping stone. So in the scholarly articles, we're going to look for stuff in the last 5 years or so. But books often cover things from the past and what mattered back in the past. So 1966, we can see there was a Bail Reform Act. So if you wanted to do historical stuff, books are a really great way to go. But they'll also give you ideas of what people were talking about. Having said that, I mean, there's a bunch of other stuff in here too. There's books. Looks like Congress talked about it a lot. There's different subjects, and you can go back by date, yada, yada, yada. But, one other thing you can do is if it's a known quantity, like bail reform, it's a pretty solid subject heading. You can go into a record, and you can look for bail reform in the record, and you can click on those too. Let's look for a book not published by the Congress. Oh, well, at any rate, it is kind of a general search. What I'd recommend, however, is since we know the bail reform is a thing, let's go to the advanced search. And let's look for discrimination, racism, underserved populations is another jargon that's being used much more recently. So let's make sure that the title has bail or bail reform. So what this means is this has to be in the title, and when I put quotes around something, it means that those two keywords have to be stuck together. So it's going to find bail, or it's going to find bail reform, and they'll always be stuck together, so it won't be like reform floating around here and there. The next thing we want to do, since we know that's a known quantity, then we can go in and what are other ways of describing underserved populations? I mean, that might be another one too. You know what? Let's just say, without a quote, because it's just one word, underrepresented. Did I spell that right? So when I spelled out minorit and a star, that's a wild card. So that catches minority, minorities, minoritized, minoritization, and same thing on this one, racist, racism, and discrimination. You get the idea. So let's look for those, and I don't know which one it's going to be, so I put an or in between them. And anytime you come up with a synonym or an extra keyword, you could do that. And for this one, I'm going to have it just be anywhere. So we know bail and bail reform, that has to be in the title. So we know that's the most important thing about the article. But let's see where it shows up in here. And I'm going to dig into the databases. We might find more in the databases. Looking just at scholarly articles. Oh, only 384. Ooh, look at that. 2021, there's an algorithmic, so quantitative risk assessment. Nice. That one might be. I accidentally found a good one. Maybe there is a good one. Racial bias in bail decisions. Oh my gosh, this worked out pretty good. I was thinking, oh, it's not going to be that easy, but maybe it is. Texas's bail reform keeps low-income people and people of color behind bars. What does that mean? Go into the article and look for a statement that quantifies that. And then you have a case for recommendations. Don't do it this way. Don't do it like Texas's bail reform, however they describe that. Okay, so that's one way. Let's do that same search in a database. I have 3 databases to recommend to you. So we just did, I have 4 databases to recommend to you. So we just did the library catalog. Library catalog's kind of like going to Target or Walmart. It's kind of a little bit of everything, but it's not comprehensive in a field of study. Social Sciences Premium Collection, that's more comprehensive. That has a rich vein of criminology, but it also has public policy, social work, et cetera, et cetera. Sociological Abstracts looks at societies and how they choose to identify and work with problems. PAIS is specifically public policy, so it's like sociological abstracts through the lens of governments. And then lastly, I'll show you this one. So let's start with Social Science Premium Collection. Let's try this search. Since we know that there's a lot of criminology in there, and you can go by subject or you can go by name. And I'm going to search premium. Social Science Premium Collection, it's in that S list. I'm going to grab my search, bail or bail reform, and we'll go to advanced search for this one. Have you used this database before? It's pretty good. It's rather comprehensive in subject matter for social sciences. So in the advanced search, I can say I only want scholarly articles. Source type. I only want it from scholarly journals. That way I won't get like advertisements, annual reports, and dissertations. And I'm going to do bail or bail reform. And instead of doing it in the title only, I'm going to look just in the abstract. So the title has the most important things, but the abstract has the most important things, but spelled out in paragraph form. And I'll do that same search. And you know what? We got another synonym, didn't we? Or people of color. So there's another, oh, and look at all this. Underrepresented, minorities. Okay, it looks like that one's, so I don't know if it's going to be one or the other. And let's do this one in the abstract also. Ooh, do we want peer reviewed? Do we want all dates? Let's see what we get with our search. And here's where we can narrow down to current times. 144. Oh, I didn't think of race. People don't use the terminology race as often anymore. That's interesting. But in the law, maybe it's codified and it takes longer. That's interesting. There's a lot of algorithms, so they might be using mathematical measurements to determine the quantification of equity. So you could cruise through these and say, okay, what's important? But you can also go into subject. So out of these 144 articles, you can see what are the main subjects that the authors of these articles used. So bail was a big one, racism, criminal justice, imprisonment, sentences, discrimination. So you can look at how does bail influence sentencing? How does it influence? I saw a pretrial in another article. You can ignore this number. Prison systems. Ooh, there's a new term, bail discrimination. It might not be adopted by everyone, but it might be worth looking at those. How does bail discrimination affect crime? Does it increase recidivism? All of a sudden, this bibliography is starting to spell itself out. And so for recommendations, you might have a laundry list of things that we shouldn't do. Disparity, sentencing disparity. Oh, this is so cool. So this is how you might frame out your research if you wanted to do it in kind of a narrative of like what matters and where are we now. In recommendations, go to the conclusions or look in the abstract and say we recommend that we don't. It might be that we recommend that we don't do this anymore. Pound of flesh. Ick. Okay, let's try another database. So cruise around in these. If you can't find full text for something, by the way, all of these, when you go into the article, all of these databases have citation generators that are pretty close. They all have ways of emailing yourself something. If you can't get full text for an article, you can get it through interlibrary loan. If you're not familiar with that, let me know. But sometimes the full text is here, and sometimes it's at this Find It button. If you're familiar with this, you can like skip ahead 30 seconds in the video. The Find It button sends you to the library catalog where to look for it in other databases. So all the database vendors hate each other. And so we oftentimes have multiple databases to cover. So you might have to go, to find it full text of an article, you might have to go to these other databases. Nexus Uni is a good one too. Let me, I don't know. Okay, I'll add another one. Just in case you don't find what you're looking for, there's a Nexus Uni is a good one to try. Okay, let's try another database. And I'm going to go back to my search so I can just copy and paste it. Yay, it's still there. Okay. So try that same search in sociological abstracts. Try it in Nexus Uni, which has got kind of a funky interface, but there's a lot of criminal justice in this one. Try it in PAIS. This is the database that looks at how governments are trying things, and they might make recommendations. So if you get a grant for bail reform in Salt Lake County, you're expected to report back to the federal government or to the state and say, here's how it went. But I want to show you Scopus and Web of Science. They both work similarly in that you can sort by number of times cited. So you can find the most important article. Have you ever used Scopus or Web of Science or had a professor recommend? They both work the same way. You can look up anything in these databases and you can find, you can sort your search results by number of times that each article has been cited. So if an article's been cited a lot, that means it's the most important. I'll let it do its loading. Okay. So bail reform. Is that the best? We don't know. You might want to expand on that. You can add a search field here. And I'll throw all these keywords in there. I don't know which one it is, so I have a bunch of ors. And that and operator is right there. Okay. And on this one, I'm going to do the abstract again. That worked pretty good. If you really want to narrow something down, just search in the title. Okay, going in. So Scopus and Web of Science only have the top tier, most respected journals. So if there's like 20 criminology journals, only like the top highly regarded ones show up. And some of them might be like neurology, trauma and acute care surgery. They might be completely irrelevant. So your keywords are not, they're not always like a guarantee of everything. It's just somebody uses those other ideas. So when you have a search result, so we only have 53, but don't be disheartened by that, because it's 53 the best. You can sort by the number of times each article has been cited. So we can quantifiably say that these articles are the most important because they've been cited the most. So, ethnicity is another one. So this is just kind of like an observation, but it's so important that these 61 articles couldn't exist. So austerity on mental health, so mental health, racial equity in criminal justice, and that one was just published a few years ago, and it's got 46 already. Race in presenting decisions, pretrial detention case outcomes. So let's go back to this one. Racial equity in algorithmic criminal justice. If this one, and you can click on these and there's the Find It button again. If this is a really good one, you can go into the things that cited it. Oops, my Mac wants to like check the spelling on 46. And you can then sort these by. So these are all the articles that cited it, and you can go those cited by highest. And you can see what's happened since 2019. So if you find a good one, it could be like a gold mine. Bias in, bias out, Yale Law. Whoa, that one even got cited more. Ooh, that one looks really good. The Yale Law Journal. That sounds like the real deal. So what you do at this point is go through these databases and download the articles based on the title or reading some of the abstract. Download the ones that you think look pretty good. And then, after you've downloaded them, then take a break and then systematically go through each one and see if you can build a narrative that is kind of like stepping stones across a creek. And so each article should be a stepping stone that makes a distinct point that takes your reader from one side of the creek, not knowing anything about your subject, to using the words of scholars and the evidence of scholars, stepping across the river, and on the other side they'll be like, okay, I understand. And your organization, your curation of all of this is kind of like you're walking somebody across. Let's see what we have here. Oh, so people increasingly use algorithmic risk assessment to estimate the likelihood somebody will commit a future crime. Isn't there a Tom Cruise movie about that? Oh, look at that. Here's a recommendation. We found a recommendation. Critics advocate 3 strategies exclude input factors that correlate closely with race. There's a recommendation. Okay. There's no right way of doing this and there's no wrong way of doing this. It's what you think conveys the message that you're interested in. So give yourself a break because there's going to be too many articles and you're going to have to narrow it down. And let me know how it goes. I'm happy to read your bibliography as you go. Have a good one.